Okay, so this video is going to be about writing with a day job. This is something that I am very, very familiar with, as I only had a few years while I was working as a full-time freelancer. So 90 to 95% of my pursuit in a career in screenwriting or writing in general has been with a day job. This is something that is pretty much even most professional writers start out having to write while working a day job. So this is a starting point for everybody. And I think this will be very important, even for more seasoned writers who may be going back to having a day job. I have met several writers who have sold scripts or have gotten into the guild and maybe have something going for like a few years, and then something happens and they end up having to get a day job again. So it'll be, I think, even helpful for those who are trying to do sort of a restart or a reboot. Now, if there's anything to understand about taking that pursuit of, okay, how am I going to start writing full time, so to speak, while having a day job or a night job, an overnight job, but just a full-time job in general, I think there are basically about 5 things that you need to really understand if you're going to really be successful in organizing and managing this. And some of these things are philosophical, some of them are actually practical that you can put into action. But the first thing I would like for anybody considering this is to understand that it's not going to be easy. I think a lot of people, when they go into the whole writing with a day job type thing, I don't want to say they expect it to be easy, but they expect it to be sort of like a simple or easy transition where it's like, I'm going to start on Monday writing with a full-time job. And with that, I'll write before work or after work and all of that. And it's just going to be easy, or I'm just going to be able to do it. And it becomes sort of a realization soon after trying to do that, how hard it is just to like write with a day job. And I don't mean in the other sense of like, if you work long hours, if your job is really stressful and it wears you down, even if you don't work long hours, it's more or less like a time thing. Because what a lot of times we consider when we look into a day job is we just really look at the time that we work. So if you work from 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 or anything of that sort, that's kind of only what you look at. It's not until you try to insert some type of thing, such as, let's say you're going to work on a novel or a script, that you realize how much your job takes up of your time, even if it's just set for like an 8-hour day. You have the mental aspect of it before work. Usually it's hard to like really do stuff a couple hours before work if you're trying to get mentally ready, if you have a high stress job. Getting ready for work takes a lot of time. If you're running late, that takes up even more time. And also the fact of when you're trying to write, sometimes a lot of people can't just sit down and write. So when you're trying to look to do a day job type thing, a day job and writing, you have to understand it's never, never, never going to be easy. Even if you get into that place where you have like a pace and a flow, keeping that is going to be just as hard as getting to that point. So you have to resign to yourself that it's going to be really fucking hard. And it's never going to be easy. So don't expect for anything to really get comfortable. Now, you may get lucky. You may have some conveniency that will make it easy for you. But you have to understand that that can be taken away at any point for whatever reason, whether you lose your job, change jobs, or just some other sort of like act of God thing happens. And the fact that you do have a full-time job does make it so much more harder for you, but also can make it easier for you depending. Because sometimes if you have too much time in your hands, it actually makes you less productive. But that's besides the point. So the thing you have to kind of really, really, really come to terms with before doing this is that it's not going to be easy. And even if it does get easy, that just only makes it that much more motivating. Because if you go in there sort of like prepare for the worst, expect for the best type of thing. So that is probably the first thing I think for anybody writing with a day job you have to understand. It took me a while to come to terms with that. I think when I was younger, it was easier because when you're like in your early 20s, everything is so much easier back then. But as you get older and responsibilities start to kind of pile up on you with other things regarding life in general, you realize how much harder it is. And so it's something that I had to like accept, that writing with a full-time job, like, yes, you understand it's going to be hard, but I didn't want to accept how much harder it was going to be than what I thought it was. So expect it to never be easy. Expect it to be very, very hard, and almost in a way that can be stressful. But that's also why once you kind of understand that and accept that, you can start planning and putting things into place to reduce that amount of stress, or to make it actually fun and motivating for you to do that. Okay, so, and like I said, you might have some conveniencies that help you. I know that there are people who take public transportation, and their public transportation may be an hour, hour and a half to their job. And so that for them creates a very easy space for them to write and work on their writing. But then at the same time, not every public transportation is the same, and that may not be the right environment for you to actually have the focus to write. So every situation is different, and it's just a matter of, again, accepting that it's going to be really, really, really fucking hard to write while having a day job, or, whatever you want to call it. So that's the first thing. Now, if you can't reconcile with that, if you can't accept that, you probably shouldn't continue watching this video. But if you are sitting there and saying, you know what, I understand it's going to be very hard, it's never going to be comfortable, what next? So the second thing is also kind of philosophical, is obviously if you're writing while working a full-time job, there's an incentive there to make money, right? Like you want to write, in this case, we're talking mainly screenplays, but maybe you want to write a novel, or you want to write for a magazine or whatever. You want to be able to make this a career, so there's a financial motivator to that. So that is important, obviously, because you want to see some sort of measured result for the effort you put in. But the second thing is that you also have to understand that, one, it may take a very, very long time before that happens, and two, it may never happen. So there needs to be some creative and spiritual, I hate using the word spiritual, but I think you understand what I mean, spiritual fulfillment that you get with writing. I equate it a lot to guys or, women who go and do like a recreational sport, during their free time while working a full-time job, playing soccer, basketball, volleyball, whatever, surfing. They understand they're not going pro. They're way past the ability to go professional and make a living off it, but they do it for fulfillment. It's a fun thing for them to do. It helps them escape the stress and alleviate a lot of stress in their life. So there needs to be that element. Yes, like, I write with a full-time job. I want to sell a script. I want to make a career out of this as well. But I write a lot of times for the fulfillment of telling a story that I really want to write, show it to some friends, and maybe if it's really good and I feel really strong about it, I will put it out there to some producers that I know and see if I can get it circulating, or even a little bit of a bite for an option, or possibly, like the dream scenario, a big sell. So, but first and foremost, it's fulfilling to me to write, and that makes it so much easier and less stressful, because I don't look at it as a task or as a chore, and more as a necessity of mine in order to feel fulfillment. So that's really the first two things, is more on the philosophical side, is accepting that it's going to be very, very fucking hard, and that you need some element of fulfillment from there, creatively, spiritually, of some sort, on top of like the financial incentive to do it, to make a career out of it. Now, the third thing, this is something to implement, is discipline. You have to have discipline. So there's just no other way to put it. There's no tricks. There's no little hacks. You have to get your ass up, sit down in the chair, and write. That's just plain and simple. And I think a lot of people, when they're looking to balance and manage writing with a full-time job, is they think there's like these little tricks and hacks or these little shortcuts that they can take, and you can't. You have to make time. You have to, if you're working 50 hours a week, If you have to find 2 hours in that week to sit down and write, you have to find it any way possible. And that's why it's so important that with the incentive, the financial incentive, you need a fulfillment incentive, because the financial incentive can be very motivating and can push you to take a lot of action and write a lot. But the longer you go without receiving that financial reward, the harder it's going to be to stay motivated. So you need that fulfillment. You need to be able to say, hey, it's 1 a.m. I just got off like a 9-10 hour shift. I'm going to shower, and I'm going to, after I shower, I'm going to write from 1:30 to 3:30, like plain and simple. That's what it takes. It's massive fucking discipline, which goes back to the first thing of how hard it's going to be. If that doesn't sound appealing to you, this might not be the best thing for you to do, best thing for you to pursue. And so, it's not going to be easy. You need to have some aspect of fulfillment, and you have to have discipline. How do you implement discipline? You just do it. Like, you really have to will yourself mentally and physically to get up and go. If there is any type of like strategy or hack, I would say you, at the very least, would just start carving out some time every day to sit down and try to write. Even if you're not going to write, even if you only get a few sentences, even if you don't have any ideas, if you get into the pattern of setting aside to discipline yourself, to get yourself in that chair to write, even if you fail at doing that, at some point you're going to sort of train your body and your mind to start committing to that more consistently. Which is why I said earlier, sometimes like people get very convenient help, so to speak, where they take the public transportation for an hour and a half to work, so they're able to actually have that time to focus. And part of that discipline also is having the discipline to not be distracted, especially nowadays with social media and just the internet in general. So many times did I find myself saying I was too tired to write, and then 2-3 hours later I was on my phone just scrolling at stuff, and I realized how full of shit I am, basically. So you have to have the discipline to put the phone down and say, I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm going to turn it on notifications. I'm going to turn it off. Even if you want to listen to music, fine, but like put it on do not disturb. At some points I deleted all my social media apps. So the only way that I could really like engage in social media was by doing it on my laptop. So that's also part of the discipline, is creating an environment where you can actually take action to do stuff like that. And part of that's also going to be in terms of life stuff. If you are somebody looking to try to do this and you don't have the right type of support around you, you may need to start thinking about rearranging your support system. And there's another, basically, like, if you feel like you're also not surrounded by people that are sort of on the same wavelength as you, that can have an effect as well. It's hard to be a writer if you don't know other writers. It's hard to be a writer if you don't have relationships with other writers to some extent. If you are sort of like a writer and your friends all do completely different things, non-creative things or anything like that, it's hard to find yourself in a way to be motivated to pursue that. Some people can, some people can't. So there's a lot of discipline acts that you need to implement, that where you're going to help yourself make it easier to be committed to this. And again, it comes down to like the physical act of really just setting aside time to get up, sit down and write. And when I say get up, I mean like get up from your bed, get up from like social media and all of that. And then also creating an environment. Like, you don't necessarily have to like stop being friends with a group of people just because they're normal, everyday people, in the sense that they don't do anything creative, or, they don't even like necessarily support you outright. They're just kind of like, oh, that's cool, whatever. But you do need to find other people that can be in that same mindset as you, that want to write, that you can find support from, philosophically, creatively, and all of that, which will come into play actually in the fifth thing that I'll talk about. Now, the fourth thing is you also got to have to redefine progress. Now, the worst thing you could do when writing full time or writing with a full time job is setting unrealistic goals. I had to redefine what I considered progress. So before I was like, okay, I need to write, 3 scripts a year, or I need to finish this script in 3 months, or anything of that sort. And eventually I started realizing I wasn't really accomplishing those tasks or the goals. So I started to redefine what that meant in terms of progress. So for me, progress was I just needed to write a substantial amount of pages every week. So 2 to 3 pages minimum, upwards of 10 to 15. And whenever I finish, I finish. If it takes me the whole year to get that done, I will get that done. And I also had to tell myself that if I hit walls on certain projects that I was working on, that in order to keep that progress going, I should start working on other loose ideas that I have, even if they don't really go anywhere. And I realize like they're not that great of an idea, but I just need to keep that rhythm and that discipline of writing going. And then when I can get back to the original thing that I was working on and get out of sort of that wall, then I'll go back to it. So I made my progress definition a lot more fluid, so to speak, a lot more gray area, and I simplified it. So it's the same thing you have to do, because when you're not a professional writer, when you don't have assignments, it's very different. If somebody's telling you have to finish a script by the end of the month, or you're not getting paid, you're going to finish the script by the end of the month. And if it's something you're doing full time and you don't have the distraction of a job, it's just a lot. It's just different. Your progress is much more financially tied, so to speak, while your progress here is a lot more morale based. It's meant to keep your morale going. So you have to redefine what you would consider progress, success, and the baby steps leading to what you would end up hoping to be a career in it. Now, the fifth thing would be you need to find a collaborator. Now, not necessarily a co-writer, but you need to find somebody that you can ping ideas off of, you can send your script to and they'll read it. Even people that can be what I call like a spiritual co-writer. I don't know why I use that word again, but like spiritual, meaning like they will literally talk to you about scenes and give you ideas and say like, oh, it'd be cool if this character says this and if you structure the scene like that. So in a way they are kind of being a co-writer, but they're not actually writing anything. They're just like, they're there to really like feed you the fuel to keep writing and, kind of be like your biggest like cheerleader, so to speak, in a creative way. And that's why that's also very important, because also if you have a collaborator who's willing to work with you, even if it's just sitting down with you and discussing your script scene by scene, or if you're writing a novel chapter by chapter, that ties back into the discipline part. Because what a lot of people, especially like with the workshops that I do, what helps them is knowing that every week they have to meet with me for at least an hour or two and work on their script. And even though I don't sit there and write anything with them, even though I don't sit there and tell them what to write, just discussing what they've written, what they plan to write, and how they want to like really like concoct, the next scene and curate everything, and then actually write it in front of me, like sitting them and watching them write and helping them through that process and keeping them like focused on that makes a huge difference. And a lot of people that I've done workshops with have said the same thing. They're like, if we didn't have to meet every week, I don't think I would have ever finished the script, or it would have taken me years to finish. And so you have to have a collaborator, and ideally somebody who sees the bigger picture. Like when I do workshops, I never ask for credit. Never ask to get paid. I'm not looking for money. It's just, I've been there. And so I know like how important that is. And so I want to like offer that for people who are willing to take advantage of that and have the commitment and dedication to take advantage of it. So, the thing is that when it comes to this, like writing with a full-time job, it is very doable, but it is one of the things that you have to understand that you probably will have to work exponentially harder than a professional writer. It doesn't mean, it doesn't negate or make their process any less than, but also a lot of professional writers started out as people writing while with a full-time job. So I don't think any of them would ever want to go back to that because, as I said in number one, it sucks. Like, it sucks to write with a full-time job. It's so taxing and discouraging a lot of times, but it is doable. And I really believe that if you follow at least these 5 things, you can add more to what you would want to do. But I think these 5 things, from the times that I've been the most productive and the most successful with writing with a full-time job, it's because of these things. It's reconciling. It's going to be very, very difficult. It's never going to be easy. Focusing on fulfillment as much as I do like any type of financial incentive, having developing discipline, like really, really developing that discipline, redefining my progress, and then always having a collaborator. My go-to collaborator is my friend Armando. He writes a lot. I do a lot of, he does a lot of collaborating with me. A lot of stuff that I write, even though it's just me writing, he's given me some great ideas and helped me be motivated to finish stuff, and vice versa. So hopefully that's helpful if you're looking to kind of get going with doing writing well with a full-time job. Feel free to comment, feel free to email me or hit me up on Instagram. More than happy to help. All right.